Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville, and I would invite everybody to rise and join Council in O Canada. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. I want to compliment you. You were all in really good voice tonight. And Madam Clerk, I have to say, there's no contest. Your version of O Canada is much more singable than the one they have at the Region.
I'll give you that.
All right. So, Madam Clerk, we may have regrets here from Councillor Sandu, who's on maternity leave. And is Councillor Duddick over there behind you? Or she's regrets. All right. She's on regrets too. Very good. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, there are none. Are there two of you who'd like to confirm the minutes of the previous council meetings as listed in your agenda? Councillor O'Meara and Councillor Longo, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? The minutes are confirmed. Now we need two of you to volunteer to move us and second us into committee of the whole. Councillor Palmer and Councillor Lischina, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and we are now resolved into committee of the whole. Council, we have a public consent item and a confidential consent item. Are we able to move those in public, or do you need to go into camera?
The consent item, I think, has been postponed until March meeting.
Oh, right. Oh, the public one, yes. Okay, so you don't need a motion for that.
I do.
You do? She does. We need someone to move postponing it to March. Councillor Elger, all those in favor? Now it's postponed. Same set of questions on the confidential consent item, which is Councillor O'Meara moving it. Thank you, sir. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. Congratulations to everybody involved. And we have ratified the collective agreement with CUPE 1329. Now, are there members of the council or of the audience who have comment or information for us on discussion item 2, which is the support of the Paris Galt Moraine Conservation Act resolution that Councillor Giddings and I introduced in December? Any members of the public? Anybody on council? May I put the vote? It's moved by me and seconded by Councillor Giddings. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you, everybody. And I hope that helps save the Paris Galt Moraine. Same set of questions for the Oakville Museum Strategic Plan. There's a report you've all read from the Recreation and Culture Department. Staff are available for questions if you have any. Councillor Chisholm.
Yes, you have a question or two if you don't mind.
You're up.
In the report, it indicates revenue sources, and I just need a little bit more detail on the revenue sources and understanding, as a museum as it stands, there's not a lot of revenue that comes into the museum. I think it's about $65,000 in revenue, but it indicates in the strategic report that they will be looking at other revenue sources. Is there a target or with respect to the finance on that end of revenues? for this year?
Through you, Mayor Burton, we have not specifically set a target or identified new revenue sources. However, we are looking at opportunities to expand programming. As well, when we developed the operational plan for the coach house that is currently under renovation, we'll be looking at revenue generating opportunities at that facility as well.
So to say that we have no targets with respect with this. Now, I'm just throwing it out here. It's 65,000 compared to your, what's the total net budget? $589,000. It's not a lot of revenue. Is there any indication where you would come back to council through the budget to see where we are on the revenue side coming up at the end of 2020? Would that be appropriate?
Certainly, as we work through the process over the next year, we'll be identifying the revenue generating opportunities and bringing those forward as part of the 2020 budget process.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I just had a question about the funding from the ministry. Are we looking at the same amount of funding? Are we anticipating a change in what we would normally receive?
Through you, Mayor Burton, we have received relatively the same amount of funding from the ministry for at least the past 5 or 10 years.
Right.
It does vary slightly every year. We apply for the granting beginning in May. I think applications are typically due the end of June. And we're typically notified in the fall as to our funding, but we have anticipated in the budget that we will receive the same level of funding we have received historically.
Okay, thank you.
In the funding, is there a way for people to do donations straight to our museum and get an income tax receipt at this time? Because I've heard that there have been people that have inquired about that, and right now we didn't have a way to give any kind of income tax receipt.
Through you, Mayor Burton, we do accept donations at the museum for the smaller denominations in lieu of admissions, but certainly we can facilitate larger donations and would be able to provide a tax receipt for cash donations. We're not able to issue tax receipts for donations of objects at this time, unless they were of great cultural significance, and then there is a process through the federal government.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you very much. I wonder if staff could tell me, I understand that there's a lot of consideration of the existing facilities that we've got, and that's great and very understandable. But there is some discussion of using some of our rec centers in the north for providing reach out into new communities. And I wondered if there had been consideration for providing exhibits dealing with the, I'll say, more contemporary history of Oakville, I'll say from the 1950s on, of the new communities north of the QEW within the broader area around, for example, Iroquois Ridge or River Oaks or Glen Abbey, and the history of each of those broader neighborhoods in those areas, and using those facilities as a reach-out point from the museum into those neighborhoods that might otherwise not really recognize that we do have facilities down by the lake. And because of that lack of knowledge, they're not fully making use of facilities perhaps, and if they had a reach-out point into those facilities, it might help.
Through you, Mayor Burton, we certainly have worked to expand our offering in community centers as we've moved forward. We haven't specifically looked at Iroquois Ridge Community Center or Glen Abbey, but the museum does have a number of outreach exhibitions currently, and staff are currently working to expand the exhibitions. There is small staff there.
Yes, I know.
But certainly looking to, we can look at providing more in the north as well.
So I would love to see within the atrium or hallway area of Iroquois Ridge, for example, a small exhibit that could be there, but it could also be one that could move between the other centers as well, possibly. So I'll leave that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hazat-Thiel. Councillor Chisholm, I'll come to you when we've exhausted the first-timers.
Thank you very much for the report, and I think the mission statement's, it's great. I mean, the fact that it's going to tell the stories of all of the people in the places, I mean, my hat's off to you. There is, on page 90 of, I'll call it page 4 of the actual strategic planning framework document, Appendix A, you refer to the museum can also provide unique research services for implementing the harbor's business plan and operations model. I wasn't clear on what that meant and how your group was going to support that.
I think certainly we have heard that the harbors are a very important part of the story of Oakville and certainly the Ercless estate site. So as the harbors business plan is rolled out, I think we're looking to incorporate some of the history of the harbors into the Oakville Museum down at Ercless Estate.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that.
I think we're coming back to you now, Ray. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I had another highlight here I missed. You're also looking at the hours of operation on the open door, and I see that, we're closed on Mondays and we're only open Tuesdays to Sunday, 1 to 4:30. I know that's always been a challenge at the museum because of location, and a lot of people think it's just a house and don't even know it's our local museum. I don't want to put you on the spot, Sarah, but with respect to back to the revenues, and the turnstile, we don't charge now, correct, for admittance into the museum?
Through you, Mayor Burton, yes, we moved to a model of admission by donation. So we do currently ask for donations, but do not charge an admission at the museum.
Correct, okay.
Relating to the operating hours, we are working with staff to try and establish if we can expand the operating hours within the current budget of the museum. We've spoken about piloting an evening during the summer, for instance. So we're working on that plan currently.
I'm hoping with the addition of the coach house and programming in there, that will increase that, which I'm really excited about, and good to the staff and to the department. But do you have any idea what the percentage of dollars you're bringing in on the turnstile as a donation? Based on the $65,000, I would assume that's all mostly program revenue coming in from program, but as a turnstile, do you have any indication how much money's coming in with that?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I'd have to go and look. That is a separate line in the budget. I believe it's an amount in the range of about $5,000 or $6,000.
Okay, all right. So it's safe to say that the turnstile, $5,000 or $6,000 in this operation is very minimal. Personally speaking, I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to develop an admittance fee because it's such a low rate on revenue side. And I'm really excited about the house coming on, the coach house and so forth with new programming. And I'm hoping we can increase our revenues on that side with the operation. With respect to the turnstile, I really don't have an issue with that at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Chisholm. Who's happy enough with it to move it? Councillor Chisholm. May I put the vote? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Now, that brings us to the Kerr Street at Lakeshore Rail Corridor grade separation addendum to the 2009 Environmental Study Report. I believe that's a pretty clear item. Any questions? And if not, is there a motion? Councillor Chisholm's moving it. May I put the vote? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. The next one is pretty much the same story on the Wycroft Road improvements. Councillor O'Meara? You're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I do have a couple of questions here. Firstly, it pertains to, we're in the process of doing our urban mobility study, and something that we've heard a lot is first mile, last mile connections. And this to me would be where we would find those connections. So what are we doing in this EA, or how are we going to be accommodating specifically the first mile, last mile connectivity problems that seem to exist around our GO stations in particular?
Through Mayor Burton, the plans for the Wycroft EA improvements do include multi-use trails in the vicinity of the Bronte GO area, as well as sidewalks, full connections of sidewalks to get to that area. However, through the future Bronte major transit station area, there would be more multimodal infrastructure built in the future.
Okay, so we're still on sort of the active transportation side of things when we talk about first mile, last mile. There was a meeting at the Oakville Chamber of Commerce with the president of Geotab, with Ford, with Siemens, with a lot of people who are looking at doing much more than just providing ways for active transportation. They're looking at how do we get technology on those first to last mile connections, stuff we've looked at downtown Oakville, where we know we're going to be. Are we setting ourselves up for success over the next 15 years on this first last mile corridor from a technology standpoint, or do we need to go further here?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I don't know if the it looks like.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note to Councillor O'Meara that most of this will come out through the mobility study that's currently underway in planning. So while the AA in this area allows us to carry on with a certain amount of work, the mobility study will come forward and direct us in the areas you're speaking of.
So we're not going to be missing an opportunity by not putting things in the bones of what we're doing here. We'll still have the possibility to work with. And have we forwarded, have we worked with the Chamber of Commerce on this? Are they aware of this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the Chamber of Commerce are aware of this.
Okay. Okay, so we got another crack at this, and that was really where I wanted to make sure that we've got the possibility to make those connections, whether it's automated vehicles or whether it's piloting something, shuttles or things like that. I just didn't want to miss that. So on page 175, we talk about the impact, 50 properties and approximately 250 private parking spaces among these properties. And then it says efforts will be made during detailed design. What sort of efforts are we going to be trying to undertake to ensure that these companies are going to be able to still have their employees show up to work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, during the detailed design, all the options will be tried to save the property and to retain the parking spaces. One thing which I want to highlight here that the recommended design does not impact any building of any property. It's just the frontage, narrow frontages of the land or private property that will be affected and which may affect few parking spaces in the front.
Okay, so this reminds me of the same conversation we had with the Lakeshore Road EA, where we talked about a threshold number of trees, and then actually there probably wasn't going to be many trees. So is there still a threshold that there might be no parking spots impacted, but we just set out what the maximum amount could be? Is that what this is saying?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's the right. This is the maximum number which could be anticipated,
Which could
but
potentially.
I think it would be less
Okay.
than that.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
All righty. Madam Clerk, as I understand it, we have a delegation on this item. Would you call the delegation?
Yes, the delegation is Michael Marchetti.
Mr. Marchetti, welcome. I hope I said that right. Council looks forward to your information.
Marchetti.
Marchetti?
Yeah.
All right. You're
Good
welcome.
evening, Mayor Burton and councilors. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Marchetti. I attend several programs at Community Living on Wycroft Road here in Oakville. I am here tonight to ask you to consider placing a crosswalk in front of it. As you may know, Wycroft Road is very busy. There are a lot of big trucks and speeding cars. There are roughly 200 people who attend the program at Community Living on a single day. They have difficulty getting across the road to access the bus stops on the other side of the street. A crosswalk would allow people using the services and programs at Community Living to safely cross the street at the street independently without the need of a staff member. Being able to live independently as possible is very important to us all. Of us who attend community living, who attend community living. Thank you so much for considering this request.
Thank you very much for bringing it. There's a couple of questions for you. Are you ready for a question?
Yes, I am.
Councillor Chisholm.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first name?
Michael Marchetti.
Hi, Michael, how are you?
Good.
Michael, with the crosswalk that you want, is there a bus stop on the other side of the road?
Yes, there is. Yes, because there's a lot of people with disabilities, and there's also a lot of people that we also have senior citizens that just moved there, and we also have people that are blind that we need to help. That we need to have a crosswalk there.
Good answer. Good answer. So I don't want to ask too many detailed questions, but do you know how many clients cross that roadway on a daily basis?
How many people?
I do not know the answer to that question. Maybe 25 to right now on a daily basis, but it's very important to them to be able to cross that way independently without a staff member.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Councillor O'Meara has a question for you, too.
Yep.
Hi, Michael, over here.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming. Am I correct? Were you also the same person who helped get a bus stop at the greenhouse?
Yes, I am.
So you're an old hat at this then, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much for doing it, and I think it's a great suggestion. We'll be bringing it up to staff for sure. So thank you very much for coming and advocating to council. You do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Well done. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Marchetti.
Thank you.
All righty. Councillor O'Meara.
I would just ask staff then about the possibility of including a crosswalk on Wycroft at the location.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can advise that there is a crosswalk planned at Weller Court, which is right in that area, and the exact location will be determined as part of detailed design.
So then we can take the delegates' request in to perhaps move that if so needed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Chisholm.
Just for clarity, we're talking a crossover. That would be with the flashing lights. Hopefully we'll have them on top and on the side. A PXO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what it is at this point. That'll all come through as part of detailed design.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Robertson, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is carried. Now we have some bylaws to amend the Town of Oakville sign bylaw as per a procedure that we've adopted earlier. And are there any questions or concerns about any of them? Councillor Grant.
I'll move 6, 7, and 8 if it's appropriate.
That is appropriate. Thank you very much. Councillor Elgar.
Just a question to staff regarding the report regarding the signs that they want to put up down across the road at the Oakville place. It seems to me they might already be up. Is that a fact, or am I thinking I'm seeing something that's not there?
Good evening, Tracy Clapham with Municipal Enforcement Services. Through you, Mr. Mayor Burton. At the time of the report, speaking to item number 7, at the time of this report, none of the signs were up. Even up until December of this year, none of the signs were up. On the east wall facing the QEW, I believe Bye Bye Baby is up. The sign for PetSmart on the east wall facing the QEW, I believe they've put a banner up until tonight has taken place. On the west wall, Bye Bye Baby has also put up a banner until this session has taken place as well.
So there's only one sign that's been put up permanently?
One permanent fascia sign.
Now, was there, just the question is why, just so that RioCan is not exactly a small player in this industry, were they not aware of our bylaws regarding signs going up?
I believe that they were aware. They worked with staff throughout the process. I don't know on the timing of why we are so close to this, and they couldn't wait until this session. However, I did see, thank you, Anthony Zagaria from Leon Lebelski's Architect Inc. is here. Roberto DeBarro from RioCan are here on behalf of RioCan Management Inc. They're willing to answer any questions or concerns. Would you prefer to hear their answer?
Well, sure, that'd be a great idea. Thank you.
Anthony or Roberto?
Good evening, members of council.
Sir, thank you very much for joining us tonight. The councillor would like to know why you couldn't wait for council's decision before putting the sign up.
Oh, that one, Roberto will have to answer that one. I apologize.
Good evening.
So welcome. You obviously are the one who's more skilled with the hot potatoes.
The unfortunate part of this whole kind of project is, and I'll give you a little bit backstory to what we were doing at this year's and the revitalization, I guess, of that space. When we first sat down with the tenants that you see there today, we advertised an elevation that we thought was permitted at the time. We had sat down with group members of the town, and we went over the elevations to describe what we were looking to do as far as the approval process and if we were online and on side with the idea. And at that point, which is going back a couple years ago now, it was online. And that elevation fell into the leases, okay? And then as we were going through the signage permit application process, then it became apparent to us that the bylaw had changed between the time when we saw it, or we first talked about it a couple years ago, and probably the last year, as far as the availability of the size of the signs on the building themselves. With Bye Bye Baby, which I guess is your original question, they're looking to open in a very short period of time. And in order for them to open, they needed their sign up, and very, very frankly. So the sign was put up without proper approval. We opted to allow the sign, I say allow with quotes, the smaller sign that is not what we've gone in for approval for. We've asked for a larger sign and a different elevation. We opted to, because we knew that the timing was a little bit off. When we first started this process, we thought we'd be meeting with yourselves in December. And then it got pushed to end of December, then the beginning of January, and then to today's date. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm hearing you say the process kind of got a little complicated, and you're sorry, and you hope everybody understands the circumstances.
Yeah.
Is that what he said? Good answer.
Yes, we certainly realize we're in the wrong, and we do apologize, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So the motion by Councillor Grant is in order, and I'll call everybody's attention to the fact that Part 7, item number 7 in it, is revised in accordance with the memo from the Municipal Enforcement Services Department dated January 27th that you all have. Councillor Hazlett-Thiel. It's the best time.
Okay, so it says there was an approval for 5 signs, and now we've got a 6th sign, is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Burton.
Because my understanding was the 6th sign was prohibited, and the first 5 were okay, but we don't see a picture of where those first 5 are. So as much as we may lean to be supportive, it'd be kind of nice to know where those other 5 are to understand the magnitude of the signage we're going to put up on this building.
That is correct. There were 6 signs, so we'll start there. There was 6 signs. One of the 6 was, a letter was sent back and denied, prohibited. If you would like me to go over where the other signs are, I definitely can. And I'm just going to flip to my diagram. If you don't mind, we'll start on the Leland side. One of the pictures in the report in front of you has PetSmart. There are 3 small signs on that angled wall there, and they're very small in scale. And that other PetSmart becomes the 4th sign. And then the fifth sign is facing the QEW.
So, Councillor, if I may? So it's a branding thing ultimately. So PetSmart,
get that.
yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, it is individually each sign, but that, because you have to look at it as each individual section, you end up with 9 signs, as you kind of pointed out.
Sorry, and I missed one that faces Trafalgar Road. So I apologize for that. There is one that faces Trafalgar Road. So there's actually 3 small signs, and then the one in the report that you see facing Leland Avenue, there is one on Trafalgar Road, and then the requested one before you tonight is facing the QEW.
So this may be more of a question for the commissioner. So in the sign bylaw, we often worry about the sign face. What's the total sign face? And there's limits on it. So Commissioner, could you perhaps help me understand what the overall sign facing is on when you add all of this up? Because we're not just talking about one sign now, we're talking about the magnitude of that.
Through Mr. Mayor, in these cases, and especially in the case of a shopping center like this, it's not just the sign face, but it's the number and the percentage of signs that occupy a wall face. And I think what's important in this case is that this has been reviewed by Urban Design to take a look at the entirety of the signage on each face of the wall, and have come back and said that essentially that they support the addition of these signs in their totality, so they don't overwhelm the site. While I don't have the exact percentage off the top of in excess that this is going to be, I think what we've heard from Urban Design and from our staff is that because of the large wall space, that it's reasonable to add this amount of signage without being overwhelming.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Chisholm?
I'm just making a comment on that question, but with looking at the photos and so forth and where all these signs go, with all due respect, this is more looks like a wholesale mall. It seems to be overkill in signage, and I think, personally speaking, it's not appropriate for this mall. This mall is not a wholesale mall. It's not one of those outlet malls, and that's what I'm seeing here. That's just my comment.
Thank you for your contribution. Anyone else? All right, Councillor Grant has moved the items as described. May I put the vote? All in favor? Opposed? It's close, but it's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And we apologize for our tardiness. We were under the impression it was 7 o'clock, so we're sorry.
Thank you. All right. Council, the next item before us, excuse me? I see, all right. Next item is item number 9, Oakville Enterprises Corporation authorization request. And you had a report from the Acting Commissioner of Corporate Services. And do you have questions, or can I look for a motion? Councillor Elger moves it. May I put the vote? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Council, that completes the work in the Committee of the Whole. I could use a motion to rise and report. Councillor Grant, thank you. All in favor? And that carries. I rise and report. The Committee of the Whole has met and has made recommendations on consent item 1, confidential consent items C1, and discussion items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, as noted by the clerk. A mover and seconder for the report would be in order. Councillor Longo, Councillor Giddings, all in favor? And that's carried. The report is adopted. Now we come to new business. In accordance with section 14.1 sub 2 of the procedure bylaw, the following notices of motion will be considered at the next council meeting.
Sorry,
to be
Your
held.
Worship, point of order. Did we skip over the information items?
I don't have it on mine, but I'll take your question.
Sorry, Your Worship. I apologize. I did have a quick question on Just to staff on the correspondence we received from Kevin Burns, Ministry of Transportation, already automated speed enforcement on December 16th, that's noted in here. Again, I'm just not clear where we are on this issue yet. I know it was brought up at the budget, it was brought up 2 years ago. It keeps getting brought up, but I'm not really sure. And it seems like the email from the ministry was really trying to hash out, okay, it's ready, go. But I don't know where we are on that. So I'm wondering if staff might just help clarify to me where we as a municipality are on bringing these forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding the next report from staff will be in March of this year. I do know although newspapers and media have indicated that some municipalities are trudging ahead with this, I do know that we're still grappling with some fundamental issues with automated speed enforcement. So staff are still working on that and are hoping to bring something more detailed in March that will respond to some of the questions.
Thank you very much, and I apologize, Your Worship, for interrupting. Thank you.
It's fine. We're happy to have that. Everybody's interested in the future of that. Some wanting it, some dreading it. So I was about to turn to Councillor Palmer for her notice of motion on denouncing the passing of Bill 21 in Quebec. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to say a few words on this bill. This polarizing bill was introduced in June 2019, and it states that teachers, police officers, judges, and many other public service employees are not permitted in wearing religious symbols at the workplace. These religious symbols ban employees from wearing hijabs, turbans, kippot, crucifixes, and other cultural representations. When I am in the community and hear stories from our residents, some of these stories are completely heart-wrenching. I'm hearing words like displacement in the same sentence as Canada. Citizens who practice their democratic principle of freedom of religion are being forced to denounce their faith. The consequences, if you don't comply, you will be terminated. As I watched the Premier of Manitoba, Brian Pallister, last week at his press conference, he expressed a growing concern in the direction this country is going in. Premier Pallister also noted that his government is receiving numerous applications to Manitoba's public service sector from communities that are being forced to leave their jobs. I'm lost for words. Being a mother, I cannot even imagine telling my children to change their dreams and aspirations in their careers because this province will not accept you for who you are. And yes, we are talking about Quebec, Canada in the year 2020. Bill 21 is promoting a distinction between classes and is a danger to the freedoms we as Canadians value. I bring this motion forward condemning Bill 21 and call it fundamentally unconstitutional. As a Canadian, I believe in inclusion, not division. Canada is a place where communities come together and we learn from each other. Bill 21 fails to recognize that it is everyone's given right to be proud of who you are, and it does not matter what country, what religion you come from. At the end of the day, we are all human beings. This is a conversation that cannot stop. Our countries, our provinces, our municipalities must continue to fight against this bill. I hope to hear from my council colleagues and members of the public on how they also condemn this bill on February 24th when our council will vote on this motion. And I'll just read the motion quickly here. Whereas in June 2019, the province of Quebec legislated Bill 21, which forbids public servants from wearing religious symbols. Whereas Bill 21 is a divisive law that undermines equality in the name of secularism and instead contributes to further discrimination and intolerance. Whereas Oakville is a multicultural community that is proud of its diversity and inclusivity. Whereas the town of Oakville is home to many faiths and believes that the expression of faith is a fundamental right as outlined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And whereas the town of Oakville stands with other municipalities such as Calgary, Mississauga, Toronto, and Waterloo, who have also condemned Bill 21 and believe in a Canada without racial or religious discrimination. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Oakville opposes Quebec's Bill 21 and maintains its goal of building a welcoming community where all are free to express their religious beliefs. That the town of Oakville calls upon the federal government to condemn and challenge Bill 21, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to MPs Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, local MPPs, Premier Doug Ford, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you, Councillor. The next item under this heading is a notice of motion concerning Conservation Authority funding and mandates by Councillors Adams and Elgar. Councillor Adams?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I will simply read the motion. I think it stands for itself. And it is, whereas the town of Oakville has been well served by both Conservation Halton and Credit Valley Conservation, whereas we have a long history of working with both authorities, and whereas we value the efforts of the conservation authorities to monitor floods, to manage source water protection, and to ensure the integrity of the watersheds within our municipality and to conserve our natural environment, and whereas the current provincial government is reviewing the mandate and potential funding to conservation authorities, therefore be it resolved that the town of Oakville requests that the provincial government improve their funding of conservation authorities to provide a more stable funding base that would prevent any downloading of costs to municipalities, that the provincial government maintain and not diminish the core mandate of conservation authorities, and that this motion be forwarded to the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Premier, and the leaders of all opposition parties, Halton Region, the City of Burlington, the Town of Milton, the Town of Halton Hills, Conservation Halton, Credit Valley Conservation, AMO, and I'm going to read in local MPPs to seek their support.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elgar? Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. That's the public notice for the next meeting. There's a couple of other things that I think are in order here. The first is I'd like to, I'd like to congratulate Town and Regional Councillor Dave Giddings on his recent election as the Chair of Health and Social Services for the upper level of our municipality, the so-called Region of Halton. And Councillor Giddings, I wonder if you have any information for the public on the coronavirus, given the sort of escalation of public concern. You might have some information to be helpful to people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The most up-to-date information from about 2 hours ago from our Regional Medical Officer of Health is that there are now 2 confirmed coronavirus cases in Toronto and that the risk in Ontario remains low. Our Halton Department of Health is working closely with the Ministry of Health, Public Health Ontario, as well as local health providers. I think it's important to say, I think the message we'd like to get out is that it's important to get the most up-to-date, accurate, and dependable information. And there are 2 ways of doing that. You can go to ontario.ca/coronavirus, or if it's easier, halton.ca, and there's a banner at the top in a nice bright color, and that will take you directly to the ontario.ca website where it's being kept up to date.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. I think that's reassuring information for everyone. I'd also like to, Councillor Lischina.
Thank you very much. I was wondering if, I understand that the regional councillors do receive updates, and I thank Councillor Knoll for sending a few of us local councillors information, but I think if we could make that to everyone, that would be helpful. Thank you.
If it's all right with you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to continue doing that. Good.
Councillor Lischina. Councillor Giddings assures me that he'll continue to do that.
I don't think I'm on his list. Thank you.
All right. If we're all clear on that, then I'm going to move to the next little item, which is I'd like to offer congratulations to Town and Regional Councillor Jeff Knoll on his election as, or re-election as Vice Chair of the Halton Police Board. And Councillor Knoll, we all appreciate the leadership that you've shown there. I'd also like to congratulate the Chinese community and everyone else who celebrates the Lunar New Year. As I understand it, we are now entering the Year of the Rat. And contrary to any Western perceptions about the rat is considered to be lucky and nimble. So given all the challenges facing us, let's hope that lucky and nimble will be in order. Councillor Parmer? Councillor Lischina?
I believe Councillor Parmer was also elected or appointed to a chair position.
Yes, she was. And thank you for jumping the gun on me. Councillor Parmer, who is a town and regional councilor, and represents a ward that has a lot of growth, was I think it was unanimously elected as the chair of Planning and Public Works at the region of Halton. And this is actually quite a significant position, and I'm sure that this will allow her to keep her hand around the neck of growth. So we all congratulate you on that success. I'd like also to call everybody's attention to the fact that that February is Black History Month, and we are days away from the start of that celebration. And on Saturday, February 1st, from 2 to 4, we have the Chinese New Year Festival, and I'm hoping that everyone has a good time at that. And are there any other announcements anyone else has? Councilor Knoll.
Your Worship, I have a couple, if you don't mind. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your re-election as the chairman of the Halton Police Services Board. It's been an honor to serve with you for these many years, and I'm sure that we have a great year ahead of us on the Police Services Board as we continue to implement our community safety plan and look forward with bated breath to the changes coming from the province to provincial policing. So thank you for your service and congratulations on your re-election. Second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to let everybody know that maybe watching and the members of the public who are here that we are very pleased to announce on behalf of the Oakville Public Library that we are reopening the Glen Abbey branch of the Oakville Public Library. And congratulations to all the residents of Ward 4 and across Oakville, and of course to the two councillors who have probably taken a lot of phone calls as to why isn't that library open. I can say that some members of council and your library board had a tour on Thursday, I think it was, last week, as they were Tuesday, yeah, when Councillor Longo got a big bag of popcorn in return. And I want to tell you that the facility looks fantastic. There's some terrific resources available to the community. Councillor Elgar is particularly enamored with the button-making machine. And I think that everybody's going to really appreciate the library, particularly our children and our avid users of the library system. It's a tremendous improvement to that branch and to our system. And just for your information, the branch opening is, of course, tomorrow, Tuesday, January 28th. Door open and ribbon cutting will be 11 a.m. And there'll be special presentations at 11:15, and then the branch remains open from that point forward to serve the public.
And you can make any button you want?
You actually can. We have button makers, there's video editing equipment, there's sewing machines. What's that other machine called, Councilor? A serger. I don't know what that meant, but it's cool. There's a Cricut machine. 3D printers. The creation zone is fabulous, and members of this community can be well served by the resources available to them from their Oakville Public Library. Another reason why we are amongst the two top favorite services in the town of Oakville, and we continue to promote that.
So your slogan is more than books.
It absolutely is. It's not your grandmother's library.
I like that one better. Thank you, Councillor. Council, I have requests for report. They require a vote. There's one by Councillor Robertson, and I'm going to just guess that there's a seconder to be revealed. And this is a request for a report. The heading is Immobility Fire Emergency Escape Plans. And the request reads, and it's in your agenda, the staff report back on the creation of a safety protocol for homeowners and tenants in private residences where they are unable to self-evacuate. That the report include, but is not limited to, a communication strategy developed in partnership with community agencies serving vulnerable populations on how to develop a personal fire emergency escape plan, information on current subsidies available for renovations, creation of a registry for dwellings that have residents with mobility issues. Is there a seconder? I thought it might be Councillor O'Meara. Councillor O'Meara, thank you. Councillor Robertson, shall I put the vote? All those in favor? Any opposed? Your request is approved. I have two more. Oh, you're right. I only have one more. Well, moved by Councillor Haslett-Thiel and seconded by Councillor Giddings. This concerns pedestrian safety on Cairncroft Road and Spruce Lee Drive at E.J. James Public School. That staff be directed to provide a report to council summarizing the review of pedestrian safety on Cairncroft Road and Spruce Lee Drive at E.J. James Public School during arrival and dismissal times, including recommendations for improvements. May I put the vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Report request is approved. Unless I have missed something, we have reached consideration and reading of the bylaws. And all we need to proceed is a mover and seconder for the bylaws. Councillor Elgar and Councillor Knoll, thank you. May I put the vote? All in favor? Thank you. They are carried. And these are as listed, except for 2020-08, which is as revised. And now the clerk is happy. Yes. All right. Well, that is important. We like to make sure the clerk is happy. She the boss. All right. It's been a pleasure working with you tonight. I thank everybody for your time and attention and your many good questions. And we've completed the work that was assigned to us, and we are adjourned.